I still always think I really wish that Coach Hunt would have beaten Brandon for the state title back in like '82 or whatever it was. Like just so some team up in North Florida could have had like a state, like in Northwest Florida could have had that state championship.
Those are the only team besides McCall with the state trophy though. Is everybody's got you got a thing here, a thing over there, and no state trophies except for Wacalla. They have two. Moses got one, and besides Live Oak, I don't think so. I mean, we missed an escape point a couple years ago to get one. It's it's probably only a matter of time. They had some guys doing some really good work up here, so.
Well, and this is probably for another pod, but like I'm just curious as to how it went from being so close, going half a point to losing to Brandon. Obviously, is before they were like, turned into the powerhouse, but then Brandon went on and become what they became, and then Mosley just never got, or nobody else in Bay County got close again.
So if you think about the point spreads though back then too, though, you're only talking about scoring 80 points in a state tournament to win it. I mean, I think my high school, when they won it, they scored like 72, and that was the largest point total ever scored at the time. Like it was some crazy. That was in '83 when and it was and that was supposed to be a crazy number. Now, Lake Highland put 13 in the finals a couple years ago. Like that's crazy numbers. And the thing is, wrestling's better right now across the board. That's the part that's mind-boggling to it. It'd be different if everybody wasn't better, but across the board, the state's better, and you still got teams that are scoring 170 points. I mean, look at South Dane. That's mind-boggling to think what Vic has done, and I mean, that's crazy. Vic's almost won as many state titles as he has years coaching. As a head coach, he's like, and that doesn't even include the 2 years before that when he was an assistant, when they were winning them still.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's going to get any better anytime soon, so we can go ahead and segue into our topics for today's episode on the North Florida Wrestling Show. There's new rules, and it is going to be a lot easier to score points and run up those team tournaments. So we got two of the best guys that we could ask. We got Zane Turnipseed from North Bay Haven. We got Mike Crowder from over in Lincoln. Two of the more cerebral coaches that I know. So I'm very interested to see what their point is. So, gentlemen, it's a wrap. We're getting new rules now. 3 points for a takedown, up to 4 for near fall and out of bound rules. What do you guys think of it?
Oh well. I mean, we're in Canada State, so getting a 3-point takedown, and I think we're pretty good on time too. So I think that like for us, read the rules. I mean, you take somebody down and get a 10. I mean, you could be up by 7 in just one series. It's so hard to recover from, and then it helps because referees lose their power a little bit. Right? They almost become like an escape point at that point. So I like the scoring. I mean, and then it's easier for the officials to manage. Right, 2 stripes is 2, 3 stripes is 3, 4 stripes is 4. That kind of clarifies a little bit. And I think changing rules for out of bounds helps the officials too, because then there's so much confusion about is the 3 points of contact, 1 point of contact, because they're making it so hard on these guys. And now you just wrestle, right? If something's in bounds, we're going, and they don't have to worry about all that extra stuff. I think it's going to be a big help to them. I'm sure they're super stoked about it. It's got to make their job so much easier on the edge. And we can just keep wrestling. There's no space anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. The 3-point takedown, I'm excited about it for a number of reasons. I think you're going to see more bonus points like you saw with Penn State this year. I think they had the highest team point score in college wrestling history. And I think we're going to see some of that, kind of like we were talking about earlier, from the bigger teams. But I'm excited about rewarding action on the feet. That's always what I'm pushing for. If you see me complaining at a table or throwing a fit in the corner, it's probably from stalling. It's probably from the lack of action. I like the ability to make a comeback if I can stack threes on you and even throw you for 7, I mean, your leads are just not as safe as they used to be, you know? And so I'm real excited about that aspect. I do think some people will argue the opposite, that maybe because of takedowns worth 3, defense is going to be even more of an imperative. You're going to see even more people kind of afraid to get counter scored on. So I'm excited about it. I love the out of bounds rule. I just think that's been a nightmare for the last few years. They've changed the verbiage like 2 or 3 times of, well, 2 points, but if the knees are over the line, well, 1 knee in, and if his hair is leaning to the left that day, and it's just like 1 point of contact, keep it simple. As much as we can align with college, I'm all about it. And so I'm all about that. The tilts, I think, are going to go crazy. If I can cheap tilt you for 4 points, that's going to be, whew, that's going to be a huge way in. But I do like the swipes. I like 2 for 2, 3 for 3, 4 for 4. I like, we've kind of had this in there for a second with like, if you get injured with the near fall, you get the bonus point. I feel like that was worded more clearly too. If you've reached your 4 already and then there's blood or injury time, you get that 5th point. So, I mean, watch out, get thrown and you're bleeding. You're going to get thrown for 8.
Oh, man. I like this opportunity. This rule changes. But so now you're not forced to tilt bottom if you don't need it, right? Like now, not that you couldn't. If you're sure, that's great. But if you're not so sure you're going to go, you're golden. Especially if you get the first takedown, you don't have to shoot it anymore. Now, stay up. Let them choose bottom. And I mean, that's a huge deal, right? Because first then we get on the bottom and get turned. I really, the one that changes staying on your feet. You saw it a little bit more in college this year when they were doing it, because they had guys that would choose neutral left and then they ever have instead of going back. Because you have that opportunity to, to get a 6 or 7 point move, so quickly. So I like that. And in high school, I think it's going to be so much nicer for us. Again, every team's going to have their problems with it, but I think that overall, even at a national level, we're still going to have feet. It changes the game for us on a national high school level as well, because that's been our biggest heading up. If you go to the Midwest, right, or you go to Mammoth, you can't have bottom because you're in deep trouble, right? But now you don't need to take bottom. Now we can wrestle and the actions keep going. I mean, it just you don't have to get in those positions where, man, I gotta go down. I know this guy's a hammer on top. If I don't get out, I'm gonna get turned. I can just stand on my feet and look for that 3. It's a big deal to me. I don't know what Zane thinks about that, but I think it changes our level with the country.
I think for me, over when they first started discussing it and implementing it in college, and then kind of saying that it's probably going to bleed down to the high school, I was a bit resistant to the 3-point takedown. Now I'm a bit indifferent toward it. I'll start with my favorite one is the college out of bound rules. I love being able to kind of play the boundary, but I like to still be able to wrestle on it. I think just as what Mike was saying, it's going to make it so much more clear for the officials, wrestlers, and referees on when you're in and when you're out. Because I can remember they did a referees clinic for some of the coaches in our district last year, and we spent like 40 minutes talking about that one particular point on, okay, if I'm here, am I still getting back points? Or am I here? Am I still in? So I feel like that will alleviate a lot of it. I do love the 2, 3, 4 point near fall, and I didn't even think about how much simpler it makes it for the referees on fall of 1, 2, 2 points, 3, 3, 4, 4. I think that is very intuitive. I didn't think about that. I think that makes perfect sense. Me as a guy that loves to be on top, I feel like I would have got a lot more text with this format on top, or as far as for back points. So I do like that, and I do like Zane's point that if you're a tilter, you are going to be very, very dangerous with this coming up. So if you are susceptible to tilts, you might want to start figuring out how to defend those real fast, because you might find yourself in a very, very deep hole.
It's faster too, right? So it's on the final count. It's on the 10 count for final. So now you get one extra point, but again, you're getting early. That's huge.
Leg rides and tilts, man, they're going to be money as far as points goes. JT Thaxton would have been eating. That's all I know. He'd have been down there, we'll call it, getting texts in like 45 seconds. Oh my gosh. Just a little shout out. But Yeah, I'm excited about it. But I'm excited about how that speeds up a tournament anyway. I was really excited that we moved to the 30-minute rule this last year. I almost never ran into that this season, which is great. As far as time in between matches, I think this is going to speed up techs. You guys have wrestled before. You know how long that match feels when you keep going out of bounds. And so, you filmed it. You've gone over tape where you're like, why is this an 18-minute match? Oh, because we kept going out of bounds. So
Yeah.
if with the out of bounds, now that's assuming there's mat space. We know they're still going to call it a certain way if you have that right up against the wall. But with the out of bounds and with the points leading to a tech quicker, I'm excited about that. And possibly cutting down even 30 minutes on a tournament is always going to help as far as spectators, parents, and wrestlers staying and being interested in the sport.
Do you think that with how easy it is to score, that it will put a bigger gap between those kids as far as skill levels wise? Like you might see some kid that's able to kind of like scrape a decision loss to a pretty decent kid. Now it's going to be a little bit easier to blow those leads wide open. Do you think that, like, I know people are arguing that the rules will make it more exciting. Do you think some of this might actually kind of put a lot of matches away a little bit earlier that might be a little bit more contested with the old rule set? Whoever wants it. Because I know for me, I mean, I accident, and not trying to toot my own horn, but like I accidentally would tech kids in the first period or the second period. Like I think you'll see a lot of like first period techs nowadays. Like if a kid wants to go out there and get it over with. Do you think that like, or how do you feel?
I mean, I would assume that would happen earlier. I mean, a couple years ago, Beavis had like 300 takedowns. It's some crazy thing. Like,
Yep.
you know, the sport hasn't brain space. We would just takedowns a couple years ago.
Right.
I mean, Beavis would have to have changed what he was doing because he would have just tech followed through everybody really, really fast. But I mean, the good kids are going to be the good kids. You know, I think that you're going to coach to what the game is now, right? So you'll have to focus a lot more on, all right, well, we don't want to get scored on here. You're going to have to change what you're doing. And I think there'll be a learning curve like with anything else. But I see it as being positive for the sport, just like it was in the college level. I think that it forces work and it forces work on your feet. And that's a great thing too, right? Because now you got more push to have. Because you can get six clear. You're not out of this match. You know, that's the other part too that's crazy about that. You think about that, you know, I mean, at a state level match, if you're up by 4, man, it's a wrap, right? Like you're good. You're not going to score that many points that quickly, but now, man, you get taken down to your back and give up 6. That's a huge, huge deal, and it kind of forces those guys too to not rest on their heels as well. Does that make sense? Like you can't ease off because you get the 6-point move, man, and we saw that happen against the NCAA's this year too. You know, guys are up and they think that they're good, and next thing you know, you're like, whoa, he just gave up a 4-point near file. This match is over. It completely changed the complexion of it. So I think it forces the kids to keep wrestling too. I think that's better.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, takedown, let them up, takedown. You just close the 5-point gap, just like that. And we've seen that plenty. When a kid's got a little extra gas than the other kid, or they're just feeling it, you see that takedown, quick cut and takedown. I mean, I'm excited about that though, because one thing I've always loved about wrestling is unless you're pinned or tech, you can always make that kind of comeback with a pin or a big move of your own. So I'm about it. I'm like Crowder. I think we really prioritize neutral. And I think that will be rewarded more often than not. I know one problem some people brought up with the 3-point in college was just the stalling doesn't necessarily match up with it now, because you can go caution 1, and then you're finally getting hit to what a takedown would equal. And I know some people want a reversal to be 3 if a takedown's 3. So, there's some of that math, like you said, of just coaching it up of, if I'm on bottom, I'm not looking for a reversal unless it's a Peterson to their back for 7, right? Or, sorry, not a math 6, but, so I've already been going through my head of like the different math of the coaching side of it. Like, all right, we get so used to you're down X amount, so that's 2 takedowns on this. And, but, we like to work too. And sometimes the goal is a tech instead of just pinning the kid right away. So I like the idea that we can do that a little quicker. But
how long do you think we should before it should get implemented at the youth level? You know, from middle school, little kids, all that. Do you think we should just go ahead and just start teaching it that way now? Go to implement it in
We
every
got
single tournament?
there's an AAU tournament at Arnold Saturday, and we were joking with one of the refs about it. I'm like, let's start today. You know, I'm all about as much as we can be linear with it. I'm good with it.
Yeah, we're going to start on implementing the new rules for our big goalie tournament in draft.
Yes,
So,
sir.
and it's we're definitely planning on rolling them out. Let's see how it goes, and institute the takedown and new rules, and let's get used to it.
I just saw a flyer for a tournament down in Brandon, and they put on the thing that their the folk style portion of the tournament is going to be under the new rule set. So they're trying to get out in front of it, get these kids prepared for it, and get them ready to go for it.
Yeah, I'd rather they play with it now.
Yeah, might as well.
Yeah. So let's
Yeah.
get 'em
So
working on it.
Just do a push out.
So-
Go crazy with it.
So the overall larger point, and this is my biggest thing, I'm okay with the rule changes. Like I said, for a little bit, I was kind of getting a little cranky about it, but I think that's just because I'm getting older and I don't like change. But I think, you know, obviously they're trying to grow the sport. My big question is do you think this will grow the sport? Because I've been of the mind that I think over the last couple years, and maybe this is just another piece of the puzzle, and you know, maybe, and I'll look at this retrospectively and be like, it's a great idea. But I think the sport was growing on a healthy track already. Like I didn't understand the need to implement like new rule set to try and change everything, make it more exciting. I felt like with the implementation of new technology, kind of speeding up and making it easier for tournaments, as well as the investment that we've made in women's wrestling over the last like 5-10 years. I think you can't look at the, you know, the track record of it, or at least like whatever chart that you're looking at, and you can see that it's rising. Do you think that this will be a big push for wrestling, or do you think that it's already going to be continue growing at the same rate that it has been over the last couple of years?
I think every sport you see is trending towards higher scoring, right? You hear people complain about it with basketball for years that they don't play defense anymore, but you look at the rules that have incentivized offense, and same thing in football. I think LSU and Texas A&M had like a 84 to 90 something game in like an infinite overtime a few years ago. But you know, I get the idea to encourage scoring. I think again, if we cut down on tournament time, that's going to be more appealing as well. And so, yeah, I think it can help. I think Crowder's right though. It comes down to the coach a lot of the times. You know, it helps if you're a teacher for sure. I don't know how some people recruit the numbers if they're not on campus. I've always been blessed to be in that position. But you know, it's hitting the halls. It's exactly right. If we had a year where, man, I couldn't buy a heavyweight, but I promise you, every kid that walked by in an XL shirt, I was like, hey, you ever think of this, that, and the other? And so it's about recruiting the kids. It's about the personality. You know, the success definitely helps. If you get lucky enough to have a David Mercado that kind of spearheads your program and gives you those wins and shows that it can be done there, you know, it definitely helps. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm a little curious too, though. You know, the one comment I saw too was with girls wrestling in college being freestyle. I'm a freestyle elitist anyway. I think, you know, watching the world trials and stuff like that, I'm all about us being full freestyle all the way through. But I know that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, there's things. Yeah. It's how you know, and it'd be cool if we could transition them right through it, right, and they would wrestle what they were going to wrestle in the college level. But I get the arguments, you know, from the official side of it. It's hard because, you know, it changes what they do. You got to change gears like at the event, right? So it makes it tougher. Our girls wrestle freestyle too. You know, we send them out there. It's good for them anyway, right?
Yeah.
You want them to switch gears. You want them to do Greco and freestyle in the off season. You know, I remember, for years, that's all we had up here, right? And we couldn't get anybody to wrestle Greco with us. It was, we'd have to travel just to find somebody to do it, right? And now, it's kind of picking back up a little bit. Some people want to wrestle freestyle again, which is good. So our kids are learning freestyle again. So it's
Yeah, kind of going off that, I do wish that they would do folk style for girls in college. Like I get one preparing for freestyle, but so, and this is my thing. You know, going back to my thing that we should have a league past you know, college for folk style wrestlers. There's so many high level wrestlers nowadays that, I mean, look at the Olympic trials. Look how many high level wrestlers are out on the outside that are going to be just training partners for somebody. Like, I think that there could be another league where all these guys, especially with like Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it now, these guys are jabbing at each other. Like, just pair them up and be like, hey, let's make a wrestling card where Jordan Burroughs and Starachi get to settle their beef that they had a little bit for the NCAA's and the Olympic trials, right? Sell that. But I would love to see the girls wrestle folk style in college. I think it just makes a much smarter transition. Obviously, if you're a good coach, you should be able to coach both of them, but it just makes more sense being like, okay, hey, or if you get that one girl that just came out for that first or second season for, her junior or senior year, then it's like, oh, I want to go wrestle in college. It's like, all right, cool. Let's teach you this whole other style of wrestling instead of the one that you've been drilling for the last 2 years,
Your takedowns still, I mean, the takedowns are still takedowns, you know what I mean? So there's some still transition. Those means you're gonna learn fast, they'll transition quick and into the new rooms. I mean, but I do understand, the push to try to make it the same, right? But that's the other reason too why we struggled for a long time on the Olympic level too, because we're the only nation in the world that wrestles a collegiate style that's
Well,
not
so
freestyle.
I would say
So,
that I was actually watching a video today. There's so many different types of like wrestling. There's so many like countries have all their different types of wrestling that they do, and they still go and are able to compete on the world level. Like Russia has sambo, that's their particular one with submissions and they do striking, but they still find the athletes that go out there and wreck people in Greco and freestyle on the national stage when they're not under sanctions.
Yeah.
Well, and in too, a lot of times in the other countries too, though, the way they're supplemented is different too, right? It's their job. Well, so a lot of times our Olympic athletes, they have regular jobs too, right?
Yeah.
But if you're a Chinese gymnast, you don't got no job, right? Your job is to train every day. So depending on where you're at in the world, and I guess that's what you give up for living in different places, right? If you're going to be those athletes.
Right.
So there is some differences to it, and that's what's more amazing to that is how our athletes are able to compete when especially if you've got a 9 to 5, while you're training for the marathon for the Olympics, right? It's insane. That's even a thing that is done.
I saw for the Olympic trials, one of the guys when I was looking up profiles and just curious on who was who. And the first 3 things you see when you look up this guy's financial advisor, and then it's his LinkedIn and he's in a suit and all this other stuff. I'm like, yeah, he's going to his full office job, 9 to 5, and then training for the Olympics on the side. And even there's a great interview, I think, with Kyle Dake at his house, and it's a double wide out in the woods. Now he's kind of naturey anyway, barefoot, running around, whatever. But no, it's the truth of like we have a lot of guys that are sacrificing a lot and double timing in order to be a part of that. But we figured it out, despite doing the Hulk style, we've been really crushing it on the world stage. And hopefully, I think we got one of the better teams going to the Olympics this year that we've had in a long time. I mean, the girls look tough. The guys, the young dudes are just crushing it. I mean, there's a lot of legends kind of, sitting out or being backups this year.
We got some high school legends that are making names for themselves early. That's amazing.
Well, and I think you said that earlier, Jordan, just the level of wrestling and how much it's going up. And I think, Mike, you were touching on it. I think that's where we see it, those high schoolers, regardless of whatever age they are, like the average technique and everything is just constantly going up. I mean, funk wrestling came out of nowhere, and then now all of a sudden it's very regimented. There's actual steps to it. There's if this and this is, and that exploded onto the scene, right as I was finishing high school, early into my college. And so, just the growth from 2011 to now is huge. I mean, I watched those kids warm up at like youth states tournaments, and I'm like, my high schoolers can't warm up as good as these.
Bro, we had Max Brady from, I forget where he's at down south, 3-timer up here working with. Yeah, dude. I rolled around with him, and like I didn't know who he was at first, and I thought he was just some random high school that needed a partner. And I'm like, damn, are you a college wrestler? He goes, no, I'm in high school. He's like, I'm a 3-timer though. I'm like, all right, that makes sense. But it's just they're so fat. Like the technique level is just ridiculous now, man. Like I told some of my wrestlers at the beginning of the season, they're like, hey, do you think that you could win state now? I'm like, I don't know, man. There's some high schoolers there's some middle schoolers that are coming up in 7th, 8th grade that I'll not be able to hang with. So let me ask you this. So new rules coming in. Obviously, we're pretty good with them. Are there any rules that you would like to see added in the future, or is there some that you're like, hey, it's good, but if they would just add this, it would really get things going?
I'll give Mike a sec to think, but I'm a broken record on it. I think I say it every time I come on, but I want to push out rules so bad. Again, stalling's one of my biggest beasts at tournaments, and especially at the state tournament. I feel like it's just get your takedown and chill. And I despise that you can take a kid to the edge of the mat, take your shot, you go out of bounds, nothing. Take a kid to the edge of the mat, you're really trying to get your score, out of bounds, nothing. Like it just, at a high level, if I have that lead, 2-3 points, and I'm not getting called for that, you can do it all day. And you even see it at the college level sometimes of you watch guys up by 3 clearly just sprinting away for 30 seconds, and the ref either never hits them or gives that one warning, which, my old coach Jeff Skipper was kind of like a screw you when they just give you the warning in the last 2 seconds.
If you turn your back and you run from somebody, which I saw at the state tournament, that should be fleeing of some sort. Like it should be. I know exactly what you're talking about. That grinds my gear.
What if he's cheating?
Yeah, I mean, but then that goes on the ref though, because like if I'm able to wrestle you to the corner of the mat, like I tell my kids, control the center, control the center, control the center. If I'm controlling the center and I'm pushing you, and then I'm shooting you out of bounds, like I feel like that should be on the ref to be like, okay, there's the call right there, but you don't see it enough. But then again, I'm sure if I was on the other side, I'm sure I'd be complaining about the exact opposite reason.
Yeah, the style calls it's hard. And a Columbus to the state tournament. I mean, Riley got hit for stalling. Then nobody shoots more than him in heavyweight. We
No.
took like 2 shots in this match, and he hit us. And I had to address the guy on the first. I was like, "Hey man," I was like, "What are you seeing?" I said he took 25 shots. The kid took none. He had the only offensive game, and I was like, "But you hit us for stalling." I was like, I just think reviewing. Because I have a date. I mean, what else are we gonna do, right? And I watch the video. I do that, and we shouldn't speak too quickly about it, but you might see a red feeling.
I hope not. I hope not at all. No, because even watching the NCAA's, like they put up a statistic that it only gets overturned like 12% of the time or something like really low like that. But I would argue that the amount of time that it adds to it, to where people are gonna like keep on going back, because then the next step is official review, and then all of a sudden we have a date and fix match where we're sitting here and waiting for 30 minutes for this match to finish up because they're arguing about the call, they're arguing about this, they're arguing about that, especially with 3-point takedowns. They're going to argue that a little bit harder, which usually ends up being what they argue about. Like somebody gets taken down at the edge or it's like really close. And then they sit there and review that which coaches will already kind of do that anyway. Like you see that all the time where they'll go up and they're just trying to buy their kids some time, and they'll sit there and they'll talk to the ref for like 5-10 minutes. So I feel like that would just exacerbate the issue. Like I get why you want it, and I'm sure there'd be a time where I'm just like sitting there like, you just gotta check the video, you have it right there. But I think that it would unnecessarily prolong the tournaments, especially when we're trying. We spent a lot of this time on this episode talking about how to quicken it up. I think that's how you would end up kind of counteracting a lot of that.
The officials want it at the state level.
Well, hey, if you do it like Virginia Beach, where you got to pay $50, and if you're wrong, they keep it.
Yeah,
maybe you cut down.
So it's Super 32 qualifier. We had until this year it was close, and they were like $25. Oh, and he was standing and he was only between man. It was right now to challenge this. I was like, "You got your one?" He was like, "You might not think back," and he goes, "I don't care." Like he was so close, and they had to kind of go back and forth, and continues to present on the committee as well. And if it's just one dude that's making the final call that's watching it, we'll see. But I've talked to some high level guys, and they want it to what Harold and trying it. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a thing or not, but it's something they definitely talked about.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and if they're right, I'm sure it's good for them,
yeah,
so they can,
they
yeah.
just kind of think, and the guys, the gifts, the guys, and during your downs idea, they're going to get the time right. They're not wrestling too. Right? These guys, no matter, if you, whether you get in their skin or whatever, the officials love wrestling as well. Right? They
Yeah.
want to get the call right. They don't want it to be wrong. Right? And so you add that to it, at the highest level anyway. Right? And it wouldn't be how you'd implement it anywhere else except like that or something like that, because you really have to have the setup to do it, and you'd have to have, a guy that's going to be you know, your head
Yeah.
official, your video guy, right? So I know the technology is there. I mean, we have all the same stuff that they use at NCAA's and everywhere else. It's, all you got to do is just plug it in.
Yeah.
So it would be interesting to see if that would be a thing. But I know that they do, they do feel the same way that we do. They want to get the calls right, and if they feel like this would take it out, right? And we watch it. Maybe something I didn't see here. But I think the new rules take a lot of the questionable stuff out of there, and you can't, when you get into about stalling, it's anything that's judgment like that where the guy has to think about it, and they have their own viewpoints about what wrestling is, right? Each one of these guys came from a different background, and they have their viewpoints on what stalling is, right? And sometimes you can talk them into seeing your way, and sometimes you can't, but I know this much. If you take the guy down and put him on his back, it's hard to get hit for stalling if you're on top, right? So keep doing that over and over and over again. You're good. So it's not a time. I hate it too because it's cost me some big matches over the years that I didn't understand why it was called, in those moments, right? So it's a tough one. It's and I know they feel the same way. It's a hard one. And each one of the guys will fight to the nail for what they think the reason for that call.
That is the hardest. Like, whenever I call our wrestle offs in the room, that's always the one that I hate. So I try to be friendly with the refs on that one because I hate having to call a stall and call on my kid. Like, I hate having, especially with a close match. I don't want the match to get decided by, stalling. So it's very frustrating. You're right. It's all judgment. So you can't really, be like point to one specific thing. Let me ask you this. So we actually had another ref come on the show, and he has a rule that he would love to see, and I'm curious your thoughts about it. Mike Nethercliffe would love to see a 1 second pin. That'd speed things up.
So I mean, I had a kid that stated that, folks. I mean, I think I've seen those. I think Glenn Faust is.
We're talking about across the board.
Oh man, that'll be hard.
I think if you're pinned, you're pinned. At the end of the day, I mean, I think a lot of coaches think the same thing.
See, 1 second pins. I'll tell you this much because I had 3 in the board meet, but I didn't win that. I have 3 guys better.
Yeah.
So that's an easy one. That would be.
Hey, I'm telling you, we've all heard it though, right? If you're on your back, you're pinned.
Yeah, so, I mean, you can't argue, right? I mean, you want to play if they call you pin when you're on your belly, but if I'm sitting in the chair and you're on your back and you hit slaps me,
shout out to Travis Laxton.
Very well. Okay.
That's
it.
But
we're giving it your fault. I know that much.
Yeah, I like it, but it is what it is, and
I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, you get a question. Heard like man, they just put this one into 7 points for a forfeit.
I think so.
I think if you have a kid weighed in, maybe, you know what I'm saying?
Because that's the thing about right.
I'm Weewa Hitchcock.
That's the kids, right?
Weewa Hitchcock with 8 kids, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, gotta pin them all to win. But your 6 forfeits are all 7 points. Like, that's a sucky spot to be in.
But was it a situation where they don't have the kids or they don't know wrestling?
That's so weird. That is the weirdest.
I think if you don't want to wrestle them, I think if you weighed in somebody.
Let's explain. Like, if it's on survey all the time, for 7 point forfeit.
I'm always going to throw a body out there. It might not be my starter.
Yeah.
And I might be telling a kid, hey, you just need to not get pinned or just have fun. You know how that is. You hear your coach say, hey, have fun out there. You know, don't
Who
let.
the hell? I want to know who is like not wrestling their kids. Like that's what I want to know. I know back in my day, it was you step on the line and you get
Yeah.
your matches in. Are there people really just like sitting people out because they're ducking people?
Oh, yeah. It happened to David Anthony 3 times this year where we waited. The other team had to send out first. We sent David, and then they forfeited after already checking in at the table. We had that happen to him 3 times this year.
It happens. You know,
Healthy
people
kids.
have different philosophies on what they feel needs to happen. So, you know, but I think that it forces your hand a little bit more
Yeah.
if you have the kids right and you know that you're going to give up 7 when you can just send somebody out there to give up 6. You know, I can see both sides of it. It's not going to go through. But they do.
I'll tell you one that I would love.
What about riding time in high
The
school?
writing time.
What's that?
Riding time in high school?
Yeah, right. You know what I mean? I guess if you have the running track that can win the tournament, it does right? So
Yeah.
if they're hitting pins and hitting moves correctly, whoever your statisticians are, it takes the time for you and obviously,
Yeah.
right? But they have high level statisticians, right? That
I
are
was gonna
making
say-
sure you get it right. It's hard to do that, you know, if you got Billy who's been wrestling for 3 weeks, who's doing square on the tape, right, at a random tournament. But I
So
I
I've
don't
gotten
think
to,
that one's good. I think that one hurts college wrestling for so long. It just made it so boring,
yeah.
right? And that's why nobody wanted to watch it, right? Because you're like, these guys just riding them out with staying on top. He has no intention to score. He doesn't need to. He's going to get his one, and he's all you got is takedown. So that was, but now with the 3-point takedowns and the near fall changes that one too, right? Because you got motivation to get the heck out of there. And not give those points up more so than they did before this. Before, even if you got rid of that, you're only giving up 1.
Right.
I'll tell you what change I'd love to see, and this was brought up by Wade Chalice. I'd love to see, like, speaking on the dual meets, I would love to see, being able to pick the weights that go out instead of just starting at like, okay, we're starting at this one and we're going all the way through. I think Zane, you were on one of the podcasts that we were kind of throwing this around where, like, say you and Mike are having a dual meet, and you're like, all right, it's Zane's choice. Zane's like, I want to start at 145 or whatever, and then Mike, you would be like, all right, well, we're going to send out our rider luck to get that momentum back on, like being able to shuffle out the weight classes, add a little bit more strategy to it. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, it definitely makes it harder to bump kids for sure, right? Because if I don't know who you're sending when, and I don't know, I like the idea from a momentum standpoint. Because gosh, there's been a number of times where I looked at a duel and I'm like, man, if we just started at this weight and won the first 3, I think it's a different outcome than we.
Yeah.
I feel like you have runs. Unfortunately, I feel like you'll have the 3 weight classes where you're just like, all right, just look away for a guy. It's okay. They're trying their hardest,
Yeah.
You got your 3 hammers in a row after that, and so it really can affect it. I think it's interesting. We do it at practice whenever we have team on team duels. We'll kind of go random weights and send kids, but I don't know. I like the structure we have now because I can plan for it a lot easier.
It's hard to implement anything that's besides what you're doing now. I mean, it's even hard enough you have to think about what you're doing when the weight's drawn, right? I mean, before you knew what you were doing. When it started at back in the day when it started at 103 or 98, you knew what you were going to get, and you could do the math prior. Now you're thinking on the fly, and not everybody. I mean, not to give too much of a shout out, but not everybody's got a guy like I do who knows about the math.
Right.
Jake will sit and he'll do the math from 10 different weight classes to see. Start here, this is what we do. We start here, this is what we do. So he'll already have all that planned out, and this is stuff that I used to do.
Yeah.
And now he takes off my plate and be like, "What do we draw? 138," and he goes, "Okay, this is the plan." And he'll have my back plan ready to go, and he'll tell the kids what we're gonna do, and we'll go from like, sometimes it doesn't go simple, right? We're like, dang, we really needed the truth 150 stuff.
Yeah.
And now we're going to start at 62. We start with 65 when it's supposed to be where you need to, and you can't. So, I think that it's tough enough just to do it the way it is, and you add so much more complexity if we were choosing weights like like a lottery almost, like or a draft. People make it's a guy, you know. It's too much. I mean, we're just talking about the most guys even know how to do it now, right? Because what time of meeting mean? What do you mean? Yeah, it means you're first, dude. What? No, that means he's first. No, man. You're at odds. I mean, that's right. You'd be surprised at how many guys don't know these things. And then you're trying to explain to the new coaches how these things work, and
Oh, yeah.
especially from the strategy standpoint, because they just, especially when you're young, you just go out there wrestle, right? You just throw your kids out there not thinking about it. If you've been around it long enough, like I've had guys try to date me when I was a young coach, and they didn't realize that I'd actually thought about this stuff before.
See, Jordan's got that old school Swanee in him. He's like, we just sent him in. That's because Sean Wade's in the cream.
That's because I don't know what I'm doing, dude. Like, it's hard to
I'm just picturing.
I'm talking to I talked to my team and they're like, oh, like, yo, we're getting better and everything. I'm like, I don't know what this is like, dude. I was on really good teams, so like having to build it up, like it's strange to me. So
I tell my kids once a year after they get pinned, I'm like, I don't know how to help you.
yeah, it's like
when they're on
I mean, it is what it is, man. Like, but I mean, you got to start out from everywhere. I'm actually pretty happy over here at Niceville building the program up. Like, that's an experience I didn't get with the other ones because Bay we were pretty good already, and then Swanee already had that built in. So I'm enjoying seeing the kids evolve and get better and find that passion, find that love, and have a Niceville kind of find that that identity again. So it's fun. But this year is going to be fun with all these new rules, especially with everybody trying to get used to it. And you're in 3 instead of 2 anymore. I'm waiting to see how many refs, coaches, and everybody messes that verbiage up, but I'm sure we'll get it right.
The few people are going to make it.
Oh, I know. Oh, I know. Just do this whole thing. Perfect. Yeah, it's there. We're like, yeah.
Soundstripe.
Yeah.
It's in the detail.
Yeah, I can't do that anymore. Like, I gotta leave this. But I appreciate y'all guys being on, talking to us a little bit, getting us all prepped for the next season. I'm sure I will see you around at some of those tournaments. Hop around, man.
Soundstripe. Absolutely.
This way, you're welcome.